What I'm about to tell you might come as a shock, but no martial art is perfect. Hey, what's up? I'm Ken. This is kenfuTV, and each week I release videos in the martial arts, philosophy, technique, training, that sort of thing. So if that's what you're into, I hope that you stick around, subscribe, hit the bell, know when videos are coming out, do all of that YouTube stuff. Today we're talking about how to kill a martial art, how to stamp it dead, how to steal the life right out of it. But before we do that, I want to make a couple of announcements, keep you in the loop on things that are going on. First things first, the Conversations on Karate podcast, Greg and Sue, wonderful people, absolutely wonderful podcast. I got a chance to be on it here recently, and that episode just dropped today. So head over to where you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to their podcast because it's wonderful, and leave them a review. Help out their thing that they've got going. Next up, if you're not checking out Bujin TV, now is the time. Use the code KENFU to get a month free, and there's a link in the description below to get that. The reason I want you to do that is because there's a ton of great content, but also there's going to be a live seminar, yours truly, Dan Bernardo, James Pankovich, and we're all going to be teaching together a push hands, sticky hands, kakie kind of situation, and it's going to be amazing. Totally free for anybody who is a part of Bujin TV. You get to jump in, join live, and we want participation. It's not just a watch this. Hopefully you get on and do it with us. Because it is push hands, you're going to want to have a partner, so bring someone with you. It'll be super fun. If you are near me, if you are near Wyoming, near Casper, come do it in person. You can hit me up, and I'll give you the information, and we'll get set up to where you can just come do it in person with me. Lastly, I don't know if you know, but there is a ton of more content available. All of the instructional stuff that I teach on the mat, that kind of stuff, available if you sign up to be a member of this YouTube channel. So definitely check that out, and it also helps support the channel, so I super appreciate it. But mostly there's tons of content that I hope that you'll really enjoy. Stuff that I teach, how I teach it, instructional, technique-oriented content, lessons, that kind of stuff. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. But mostly, let's get involved, because there's a private Facebook group just for members where we sit and talk about different stuff. It's totally awesome. So get involved. It's super great. Let's talk about killing an art and how you do so and how it happens all the time, even though people don't realize they're doing it. The truth is, most arts die because people are trying to preserve them. And that sounds super weird, but it's not weird. It's not weird at all. It's the fact that when you seek to preserve, I use Ian Abernathy's quote off of Jurassic Park. If you preserve in amber something exactly as it was, then it ceases to be anything new. It stops growing. Now I get it. One of the things that we want to do for our instructors is pass on what they gave to us. And if we preserve it and pass it on exactly as it was given to us, then surely we're doing a very honorable thing, and we are being very respectful to them, right? I'm torn on this one, and I'll come back around to this. This is something that I actually want to touch on a little bit later in the video, so look for that. Also, there's chapter markers if you want to jump around to the parts that you're interested in, because I'm probably going to have a lot to say about this. So where do we go wrong when we try to preserve an art? Preserve what we were taught. I've had some different experiences in my life, and I've got to watch this firsthand, where one of my instructors in one of the arts that I do wanted very much to preserve what he was given, exactly as it was given to him, and pass it exactly as it was given to him. The difficulty came when two things were observed. And this came through a lot of time, spending a lot of time, many years with him, and understanding this, and us being open and being able to have conversations about it. And I've also got to know his instructor, so there's some confirmation in some of the things that I observed. And one of them was he himself wasn't done learning. So he was preserving what he got to a certain point, and then trying to make that concrete. The problem with that is, in like I'm kind of describing, the art kind of dies, because first off, it'd be like me training to, I don't know, hit some mid-colored belt in your, whatever your color system is, for mine to be like a green or a brown or something like that. And then stopping and then preserving that as the whole of the art. When meanwhile, I haven't maybe seen a lot of it, let alone a lot of its conceptual parts and then preserving that as the art, and then passing it on that you do it exactly this way. One of my suspicions was true, which was that some of the things that he was taught were a step along the way. They were a way to learn a certain concept, which later would be adapted and adjusted into a deeper concept. But he wasn't there for that part, and instead was concretely teaching a thing that was a stepping stone. But we don't know better, right? We don't know this. So we think we're doing an honorable thing. We think we're doing the best that we can by preserving what we were given. The other thing is recognizing that the art still needs to become your own. Over time, you have to take it and make something of it. Making it exactly what you were taught is a good way to make sure that it never gets given to somebody in a way that's good for them. The concepts of the art are what's important. How you were taught might not be how the person next to you was taught. That's a difficult thing to process sometimes as we think everybody's learning the same thing or being taught the same thing, but it's not true, because instructors naturally, and coaches, anybody in that kind of position naturally or intentionally will modify things in order to make it the best for that person. Even if it's just to get you to understand what they're trying to say when maybe they could say it one way over here, but it's just not working to say it that way for you. So exploration is needed. Now that problem came to fruition when grading became more of a, have I passed these certain things to you, and a little bit less skill-based over time. It became, do you have this drill exactly as I have it? And it became way more focused on being exact to the drill and not encompassing of the skill. And those are very different things. There are truths about the way that an art continues to pass, and there are truths about what happens during the lifetime of an art. First, it came about for a reason, something specifically that made it need to exist. Some things about the culture, the environment, and the history and all of that made it exist the way that it did and be trained the way that it was trained. But then we also have our body. Our teachers get older. You go look, for example, anybody who's trained with my instructor, if you go look, we all look different. There's family familiarity. You can see the genes, so to speak. But meanwhile, we all look and move differently, which my instructor wanted. He said, hey, if all of you look like me, then I've failed you. And then B, we also trained with him at different times. Some of us trained when he was younger. Some of them trained when he was starting to have problems with his hips. Some of them trained after his hip replacement. Some of them trained as he continued to get older. All of those things change how you do, and that's just the physical part. And then meanwhile, you continue to train and develop your understanding and what you think of all of this stuff, what your concepts are, what your philosophies are. And as you do that, then what you teach changes because what you want out of it changes. And so if I preserve what I got training at a certain time, and you preserve what you got training at a different time, then we might start to fight over who was right, who was preserving the right thing. And I see that happen a lot. Thankfully, that's not a thing that's happening in my circle, but it's a thing that I've seen a lot where people start, well, that's not how it was taught. That's you didn't teach it this way, or he didn't teach it that way, and then people start to have a problem with that and they start to fight over it. This is sometimes what leads to different styles because so-and-so taught me this, and you're not teaching it the right way, so I'm going to go open this dojo, and you need to go team your own dojo, and now we got two different styles taught by the same instructor. It's an interesting phenomenon, and sometimes it can be a positive thing, but I think a lot of times it just comes from a lack of comfort knowing that things can be different and that's okay. We lock in so hard on preserving things exactly and controlling things exactly that it's just too easy to just let any amount of difference become a problem. There are certain cultures that really focus on that specificity, everything being done a certain way, regimented. You don't learn this before you learn that. You don't do this way until you get to this far, or any of these things. And I know some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. These things are a good way to develop, military, or things where people need to function the same way or need to know the same things exactly the same way. But a martial art, not a system, but a martial art, was never meant to be used that way. It was meant to develop strong people and give them skills, but not develop clone after clone after clone of the same people. That's my belief. When you get into the more martial arts for military, the systems that are created to be used in the military, then having that consistency is a very critical component. Most martial arts that we train as civilians were never meant to be that way and suffer from that mentality because it doesn't belong. So I think that it's important that we focus on what was trying to be taught, what was trying to be understood, not what was specifically there. I hope in the future, when I'm no longer around, that my students continue to seek what I was seeking. This is really kind of funny to me. Side story. Years ago, high school, graduation, I had to have a senior quote, and I quoted Basho saying, "Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the masters. Seek what they sought." I really, really appreciated that sentiment, and it would take me a number of years before I connected it with its martial context as well, and saw all those connections. And I continue to feel that way. That's what I want, is I want people to continue to try to achieve what I'm trying to achieve for the reasons I'm trying to achieve it. And if you're one of my students, hopefully you're understanding those things from me, or will come to. Preserving what I taught to do it is not necessary. I don't find it necessary. A good example of that is drills. I am a person who develops drills on the spot to bring something out of you. I'm trying to utilize the principle of what's happening and what I need you to do, and I'll build a drill that gets everybody doing it a certain way. Sometimes those drills are excellent, and I really like them, and I think that they've got a good reoccurring function that's important, and we'll continue to do them. Sometimes you'll never do them again, and a student might really like them and be like, "I don't know why we never did that again," or "It's been a long time since we did that." But the truth is, maybe I just didn't like the drill, or I didn't feel like it got me where I wanted to go. But the drill was never important. The drill was never the thing that you were trying to learn that day. There was a skill and a principle that you were trying to learn, or a series of principles, because usually there's not just one. That's what I wanted to pull out of you. So that's what you were trying to retain. And many times those drills are okay, and they worked great, or maybe they were perfect. But I've never been back into a spot where I felt like I needed that drill to do that again, or whatever. The point is, the drill wasn't important. So if you focus and lock in, if my students focus and lock in on those drills and think we have to teach this drill is important, then they miss the point. The drill was never the point. Developing the student was the point. I don't care about the drill. Eventually I'll find a drill that I like better, or refine it, do something different. That's not a travesty. That's progress. Speaking of drills, here's another thing that becomes a bit of a problem. We, in our travels, will be exposed to other drills and other techniques and other philosophies. It will happen. It will happen when we train with other people in our own environment. It will happen when we do seminars within our own style or system. It will happen when we do seminars of things that are not our own. It will happen if we chase another art that is not the same art. We will find new things. We will fall in love with some of them. But if we just bolt them on to what we do, then our art becomes ever expanding. And at what point does it become unwieldy and no one will ever possibly be able to process what it has to offer? And the truth is, it never needed to, and it never should have. Because what we need from people are to develop their skills and their understanding. That's what needs to happen, and the drills are there to do that. So if you get exposed to a variation of a drill that's different than what you do, but you like it better, it makes more sense, maybe it's backed by some science research that has helped refine and make it something better through new understanding and new training, then if you never actually do an evaluation to determine that, you might keep it and have two, and one of them was redundant. But if you do evaluate, you might find that one of them is worth hanging on to, and the other one can sunset and go away. And now we do this one until we find one that does a better job than this one, and then we do that. I know sometimes it's really hard to hear, because then people go, "Oh, it's just chaos. You just don't care about anything. You're just whatever." I care about one thing. I care about the skills that are learned and the development of the people. Doing that one drill that one teacher taught 10 years ago is not important. Passing on the skill they were trying to get you to understand is what's important. So it's okay to get rid of a drill and train a different one. I don't see any problem with that. And there's going to be people who have the old drill who want to do it. And there's going to be times when maybe you go back to that drill and you go, you know what, there were things that I liked about this drill that I want to do. And the point is, you can do drills anytime you want, any way you want. It doesn't matter, because the drills are not done for drill's sake, or shouldn't be. Lastly, one of the things that I think happens frequently is people also lock in on time. Okay, there were 5 people that trained with and one instructor who trained for 50 years. Okay, and each one of them trained for 10 years separately of each other. This is a hypothetical. Don't get locked into that. One of them trained when he was young and spry, but more new. One of them trained the next decade, which was he was still young and spry, but he had more experience and more wisdom. Then the next one, continues. Skill degrades, ability degrades, body degrades, but experience and wisdom continue to improve. They're not the same, and sometimes we think the person who trained with them most recently, before they passed away, is the person who has the best thing that was ever given. We don't know that that's true. That's not a thing that is automatically accurate. That person was also at the part where their body did not work the way that it used to work. And so when they taught stuff, they had to rely on you being able to pull that out of yourself to develop it and do it, because they physically couldn't do it the way they used to or the way they want you to. Sometimes that sort of thing it's misunderstood. And they're like, well, this was what he was teaching towards the end, so this is what's important. Not necessarily. It's just change in preference. And as we get older, our preferences change. Hopefully we've got young people around who can continue to do the things that we go, yeah, that's what you should be doing. When you're 20 years old, you should be doing it that way because you can. And when you're older, you'll do it this way. There is an allure to the old man way. I mean, I one of my instructors for Aikido, he taught what he called old man Aikido. And I liked the idea of it because if you learned old man Aikido, then you were already ready to move into being an old man and that being the only thing you can do. And you've learned it and spent a lot of time learning it. Seems very romantic, seems like a very cool idea. I also really struggled with it because I was capable of so much more than that what am I going to do? Wait until I'm 80 and then realize that I wasted all the time that I could have learned and practiced and tried things differently? I don't know. We're young sometimes. We're old sometimes. We should take advantage of those times. Historically, this has happened too. We've seen arts that have shifted their focus over time and they've lost maybe what the original goals were. And again, I don't care about the drills or the techniques they taught. It's the goals changing that change an art, or the goals not changing that sometimes can kill an art. Times change. The world changes. Surely the martial arts must change too. Funakoshi said that about the martial arts, and it's important to realize it, that what he was saying is that when things change, what we're doing now may not always be accurate or best or appropriate. So instead, as the world changes, we should make adjustments that adapt to that and continue the art moving forward. The art should be like a living thing. It should have deep roots connected to what's going on, and as soon as you cut that off and you don't worry about anything, you just focus on the tree itself, it dies. You have to keep it growing. You have to keep seeking new water, new sunlight. You've got to go find the things that keep the tree alive. It can feel really important to preserve what you were given. And I think it can be really difficult to reconcile what is right when it comes to that preservation. And I'm willing to be wrong, but my feeling is this: preserve the intent, not necessarily the method, because the method is what it took to give you the thing that was intended. As always, I encourage you to be a part of the discussion. Drop your thoughts, your feelings into the comments. If you are a member of this channel and a part of the private Facebook group, we'll have a discussion on this specifically. And I'm really liking the way that Facebook group is growing to have these kinds of discussions. I think it's a really cool way for us to connect and build what we're doing in this community. It's super great. As always, if you like what I'm doing, you like videos like this, I hope that you subscribe so that you can see when the next ones come out. Hit that bell. That's how it knows to tell you when the video comes out. Also, consider becoming a member so you get access to all the other content that I'm filming every week. Speaking of other videos, you can hit this one or this one to get to a couple videos that I think you might like, or you can hit right here to go ahead and subscribe. I'm Ken. This is kenfuTV, and I'll catch you in the next one.